Bruce has regained the cowl, but we still have some denouement for the Knightfall Saga, as we have our epilogue in this, our final chapter. Here we are covering Robin number 9, Catwoman number 13, and the first story of Showcase 94 number 10. So we're running headlong into 0 Hour. Literally, it says right on the cover of Showcase 94 number 10 that there's a 0 Hour tie-in. Now, Robin number 9 is a story by Chuck Dixon with layouts by Tom Grummett, finishes by Ray Crissing, colors by Adrian Roy, lettering by Albert de Guzman, and is edited by Jordan B. Gorfinkel and the legendary Denny O'Neil. Catwoman number 13 is written by Joe Duffy, with pencils by Jim Ballant, inks by Bob Smith, colors by Buzz Setzer, lettering by Bob Pinaha, and is edited by the legendary Denny O'Neil and Jordan B. Gorfinkel. Yes, they swap order between the two different books. I don't know not sure what that means. Like, honestly, is it which is like the lead editor for the book, and which one's kind of like, I don't know. Anyway, finally, the story from Showcase 94 is written by Alan Grant, with pencils by Mike Fosberg, inks by Ron McCain, colors by Dave Horning, lettering by Ken Brusniak, and is edited by the legendary Denny O'Neil and Neil Posner. It's the last episode of this. I get to say how legendary Denny O'Neil is 3 times. It's worth it. We'll be talking to Denny O'Neil for a while on the channel, so make up for lost time in advance. We open with the Robin story. Robin number 9 begins with Robin going into the Batcave to investigate the aftermath of Bruce and Jean-Paul's confrontation. Bruce is upset with himself for not having planned for this, for having been willing to retire before all of this is truly settled out. Bruce returns upstairs and Robin returns home, where the last 40 hours without sleep, finally catch up to him over the next couple days, and he spends a lot of time in bed sleeping. What finally rousts him is the bat signal going up. There's a hostage situation at the Gotham Museum. Robin heads over and enters through the skylight, taking down a goon and grabbing their radio in the process. He heads to where the hostages are, just in time for Batman to make his move. Robin goes in for the assist, and the two take down the goons before swinging off the night together as the issue ends. It's a pretty basic issue, but the standout bit is the reconciliation between the two of them at the end of the fight. You left yourself wide open. No, I didn't. You were there. Short, quick little line as part of a larger exchange, but that little bit, wonderful. It shows a warmth to Bruce that I think often gets missed, even when he's operating as Batman. Now, Catwoman's issue starts with a recap of Catwoman's side of the climax of Night's End before she dives into the river to escape the police. We then go to the hospital to check in with the friends and family of the person Selina is trying to get the neural controller for. So, Selina gets some associates together and they go diving for the controller. They find it just as Selkirk's goons show up. They fight them off and hit the dive boat, only to find Selkirk, some goons, and the controller's inventor waiting on the boat. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal! Now, Catwoman hands the controller over and then activates her backup plan, where another member of her crew has replaced Selkirk's driver and steals the controller back. The issue ends after the surgery was a success, and Catwoman's beau, it can turn, well, because I didn't know this, going into the storyline, I didn't know that he was her romantic interest, but anyway, he starts physical therapy in as close to a happily ever after as things get in comics. Finally, our story from Showcase 94 follows Jean-Paul as he wanders the streets of Gotham, aimless and falls in with some homeless people. One of their number tells Jean-Paul basically about each member of the group, who they are, what their story is, and Jean-Paul defends them from some goons, not with fists, but with words, before wandering off. Each of these stories do a great job tying up a loose end in a satisfactory way. In particular, I was interested to see that the Catwoman story explicitly does not restart Batman and Selina's on-again, off-again romance, and instead maintains and reinforces some of her status quo. That this is a case where Catwoman's story is still ongoing, and this is Batman, or the Batmen in this case, interfering and intruding into that narrative. Jean-Paul's story, though brief, has him starting to take a step in the right direction, resolving a conflict not through direct violent action, not through beating the crap out of somebody. And for Robin, we have Tim and Bruce formally reuniting as a dynamic duo once more. All that's missing at this point is Alfred. That's addressed in a 4-issue miniseries called Prodigal, but that's for another time. I may return to that at some point in the future, but not now. As far as Night's End as a whole goes, in hindsight, you can see this story having to rush in order to finish before Zero Hour comes in and shakes up the status quo and continuity for DC Comics as a whole, and in particular, how they're going to shake up portions. Because each character's continuity is getting shaken up as part of this, and this is going to apply to Batman as well, or the Batman desk, for what, as you will, in DC, for good and for ill, for the whole DC universe. If you are a fan of the Legion of Superheroes, if you're a fan of the Justice Society, you're not too happy with Zero Hour for good reason, and bunch of stuff for Zero Hour, how it relates to the JSA, is definitely going to get adjusted later by Jeff Johns. But you justifiably aren't going to be like too fond of Zero Hour as an event. And as far as here, like, it definitely needs a bit more time to breathe. It needs a couple more issues. It needs time. Like, we do get this great story, get a full issue of just Nightwing duking it out with Asbat to let out his frustrations. It would have been great to have just a little more time to give more stuff for Robin to do, more stuff for Nightwing to do as part of the story. We get bits and pieces that are work, but all there's like, the way I'd put it is the portion with Lady Shiva is paced fairly well. The portion with from that point on, from once Batman takes the leap, gets a little rough. And I think, like, as glad as I was that the fact that Bruce taking the leap is in the Catwoman's book, where it kind of throws this bone to a side story, that this moment they've been building up to for this entire storyline happens there. I do also feel like that leap should have been either in Detective Comics, the book where Batman first appeared, or in Batman, and it should have been the closure of the issue rather than the opening. Or if it was going to be the opening of an issue, the leap should have wrapped up the issue before it in the numbering order. There's a pacing thing there, and because of how they're having to deal with coordinating all of this, I don't think it ever quite clicked in that way. And honestly, to a certain degree as well, while putting that leap in Catwoman's book, it gives you that reason, like, hey, I want to buy this issue of Catwoman for the visual, and then maybe go back and pick up the earlier issues in that storyline so I can get that story there. It also takes away with Catwoman's aspect of the story with regard to her going after the neural controller and bringing her into conflict with the same arms dealer that Azrael is up against. But that is where we are now. And all looking at the whole saga in in combination and with the benefit of hindsight. And now having read through all of it and discussed it, I would say the Knightfall Saga in its entirety undeservedly gets some crap. It receives unjustified scorn. I think it is much better than in the time that I remember growing up. Not just growing up, but when I started getting back into comics when I was in college and that sort of thing, was looked back on with a degree of scorn. And I think that was unjustified. I think it is a well done story. I appreciate what they were going for here. What Denny O'Neil was going for, what Chuck Dixon has since become an absolute ass. But what Dixon was going for, what Jordan B. Gorfinkel and Alan Grant, what all of them were shooting for in this storyline of telling the story of, hey, what if you say that Bruce Wayne is out of date and obsolete and does not reflect the values of the 90s. Well, now you've gotten what does that Batman look like? And is that actually what you want? And the story we are told answers that question, and it answers that question well. And it doesn't feel like it, but while it's not painting the Batman of the 90s, if you will, as a figure who is, I would describe as a flattering character. He certainly, he is proven to be unworthy of the mantle. It is also not necessarily done in a way where feels like the writers are grabbing the reader by the head, shoving their nose in the book, and saying, is this what you wanted? Is this what you wanted? It doesn't feel like that, which it could have been. And certainly other writers have done stuff like that. And this isn't it. Instead, it feels like, hey, this is why the big guns and bloodshed, the Rob Liefeld attitude doesn't work in the context of Batman. It is doing something that, to a degree, they also tried to do as well with Reign of the Supermen, actually. With the Cyborg specifically. And I think it works better here than it worked with Hank Henshaw as the Cyborg Superman in Reign of the Supermen. But that's a discussion for another time. As far as what we'll be doing in future months, the discourse on Star Wars and the Star Wars Legends continuity still gets dunked on, but I feels less aggro and consequently less toxic from all sides than it used to be. So I think it is time to return to the Legends timeline and some more Star Wars stories. So I need to get some narrative structure together for Legends of the Force, Shadows of the Empire, but that will be where our next step will be. Because Shadows of the Empire, if you read my blog, I've covered the little elements of it, but I think the big story of Shadows of the Empire isn't what's in the book, or the comics, or the video game, or even the record. It's how it got made. And I want to try and do a little bit more digging, see if I can find some articles to get into that question further. And then we will discuss, in a future month, Shadows of the Empire.
Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and also consider backing my Patreon. Patreon backers get episodes up to 1 week early of this show and any future Let's Plays. Also, please consider backing my Ko-fi. Tossing me a few bucks also helps support the show, and it's not a monthly obligation or anything like that.